Hello everyone. Welcome to today's story. A tale woven with silence, longing, and the choices that can change everything. What would you do if you discovered the person you loved was being matched with someone else by their own family? Would you fight for them, or disappear without a word? In today's story, Tuna overhears a conversation that shatters her fragile peace. A quiet arrangement for Alex to marry a woman of equal standing. She leaves, taking her newborn into the unknown, while Alex searches desperately, never knowing the true reason for her departure. Will she return to the farm where love still lingers in the air, or will pride and pain keep her away forever? And if she does come back, is it to a place she belongs, or to a man whose future may already be decided? Stay until the end to uncover the truth hidden in their silent glances. If you love heartfelt, dramatic stories, subscribe now and help us reach 10,000 followers. Your support keeps these stories alive. That afternoon, a veil of pale clouds drifted lazily over the distant bamboo hills, the wind carrying the faint, earthy scent of fresh leaves. Tuna was rinsing her hands at the water basin when the voices from the living room reached her. Alex's mother, speaking in a tone so calm and warm, it almost masked the weight of the words. She spoke of arranging a marriage for Alex, of a young woman from a well-matched family, someone with the right background to share his life and carry the family name forward. The words slipped into Tuna's ears like fine threads of ice. Her hands stilled beneath the stream of water, droplets sliding from her fingertips as if time itself had stopped. She had asked herself many times who she was in Alex's world, but now the answer seemed brutally clear. A woman from elsewhere, with no notable lineage, holding a baby barely 2 months old. How could she ever belong in the life so carefully mapped out for him? The soft laughter of his mother floated through the air, and in it, Tuna heard the final fracture in the fragile hope she had been guarding. That night, after the house had fallen into silence, she quietly folded a few pieces of clothing into a worn bag. She lingered beside the cradle, gazing at the baby's peaceful face bathed in the silver glow of moonlight through the wooden window. The child's slow breathing was steady, untroubled, untouched by the heaviness pressing on her chest. She left no letter, no explanation, only the kind of silence that spares both the speaker and the listener from a pain too sharp to name. The road away from the farm stretched long and shadowed, the smell of damp soil and the chorus of crickets filling the night. She did not know her destination, only that she could not stay. To stay would be to endure new cuts to the heart each day. To stay would mean standing still, watching Alex walk a path where she did not belong. Better to vanish quietly into the night than to break apart slowly under the weight of longing. The days blurred together after Tuna's departure, though Alex could not say exactly when the exhaustion began to show on his face. When his mother returned from her trip to the countryside, she found him standing at the doorway, his hair unkempt, the shadows under his eyes deeper than she remembered. She carried a bag of gifts, one meant for Tuna, unaware that the young woman and her baby had already left. They sat at the table, the aroma of tea filling the quiet spaces between their words. His mother spoke of the countryside, of relatives asking when Alex would marry, of how the village had changed. Alex answered in brief phrases, hiding the rest behind a faint, practiced smile. She noticed his distracted gaze and asked about work. He replied that it was fine, though the truth was that every day without Tuna felt heavier. He told her he had found where Tuna was staying, at the home of a kind woman named Mrs. Tang, but didn't know whether she would return. His mother, unaware of the deeper reasons, thought perhaps it was just a misunderstanding. She spoke warmly of visiting Tuna, of seeing the baby again, but Alex only nodded, knowing that the choice would have to come from Tuna herself. Later, alone in his room, he caught his reflection in the mirror. Unkempt hair, tired eyes, the look of someone who had been running in circles. His thoughts drifted to the last time he saw her, the way she had turned away before he could find the right words. He wondered if she still thought of the farm, if she missed the sound of wind through the bamboo. He hoped that wherever she was, she knew he was still waiting. The afternoon light slanted across Alex's desk when his sister knocked softly and stepped inside. She found him bent over a contract, the weight in his posture impossible to miss. After a few moments of small talk, she asked directly for Tuna's address. She wanted to see her in person, to apologize for the words she had spoken in haste. Alex hesitated, leaning back in his chair. "I'll give it to you," he said quietly, "but promise me you won't say anything that could hurt her again." His voice carried an edge of vulnerability, as though each word cost him something. Then, almost as if he couldn't hold it in any longer, he added, "I have feelings for her. I need you to understand that." His sister's expression softened. She assured him she understood, took the address, and left soon after. The road to Mrs. Tang's home was narrow, lined with tall grass whispering in the wind. When Tuna opened the door, surprise flickered across her face before she stepped aside to let her in. They sat near the window where sunlight pooled across the floor. Alex's sister apologized earnestly, telling Tuna how Alex had searched for her in the rain, returning home soaked and feverish. She spoke of how, even in restless sleep, he would call her name. Tuna lowered her gaze, fingers brushing the edge of her teacup, holding back the truth about the matchmaking she had overheard. "I'm not upset with you," she said at last. "It's just, there are things I can't explain right now." Her voice was calm, but the pause that followed was heavy. She promised to think about returning, though in her heart, the decision was still a storm without a clear horizon. The following morning, the air at the farm was crisp with the scent of cut grass. Alex rose early, not to think about Tuna, though she lingered in every thought, but to prepare for a meeting that could decide the coming season's profits. His business with bamboo was steady, but margins were tight, and the workers depended on him. Tony, a long-term partner, arrived with the formal air of someone ready to bargain. They drove together to the hills, where rows of bamboo swayed gently, leaves rustling like quiet applause. Alex walked him through the grove, pointing out the maturity of each stalk, the care taken in cultivation. Under the shade, they discussed numbers. Tony's initial price was firm, almost dismissive. But Alex knew the value of his crop. He spoke with measured patience, showing Tony the uniformity of the tall, straight poles, the rarity of imperfections. After a slow, deliberate tour, Tony agreed to raise the price to $18,500 per premium stock. It was enough to pay his workers better, enough to keep the farm in the green for another year. Yet, as they shook hands, the satisfaction was hollow. The deal was a win, but it did nothing to fill the space left by Tuna's absence. Driving back, the road wound through familiar fields, but the sight of them only made him wonder if she missed these same views. The glint of sunlight on wet leaves, the murmuring of the wind. By the time he returned to his desk, the contract lay before him, unsigned for the moment. His mind drifted again, not to the numbers, but to the image of her sitting somewhere far away, deciding whether his world was still a place she could belong to. When the business was finally settled and the contract agreed upon, Alex should have felt lighter. The price increase Tony had approved would ease the strain on the farm, ensure his workers were paid better, and keep operations steady for months to come. But as he drove away from the bamboo groves, the sense of accomplishment barely brushed against him. The numbers were good, the outcome was fair, yet none of it reached the quiet, aching space she had left behind. Without truly deciding, he found himself turning the wheel toward the hills. The road was narrow, the bends sharp, lined with wildflowers that bowed gently in the wind. The late afternoon sun spilled gold over the slopes, the bamboo swaying in soft rolling waves, as though the land itself was breathing. He told himself it was a simple visit, just to check in, but his pulse betrayed him. Mrs. Tang was at the gate when he arrived, her hands still damp from washing vegetables in a tin basin. She greeted him warmly, the kind of welcome that carried no questions but seemed to understand the ones he carried. "Come in," she said, wiping her hands on her apron. Inside, the small home smelled faintly of wood smoke and fresh-cut greens. There she was, Tuna, seated near the window where the sunlight softened the edges of her hair. She cradled the baby close, rocking gently, her gaze lifting for only a second before settling back on the tiny bundle in her arms. For a moment, Alex simply stood there, letting the sight of them settle into him like a long-awaited exhale. He took the chair opposite her. The wooden table between them felt strangely disproportionate, too small to truly separate them, yet somehow wide enough to hold the unspoken words they'd both been avoiding. "I came to ask if you've thought about returning to the farm," he said at last. His voice was steady, but in his chest the question was louder, heavier. Mrs. Tang looked between them. "It would be better for the child," she said gently, her words deliberate, "and for you." Tuna didn't answer immediately. Her eyes lingered on Alex, studying him as though trying to read a page she'd once known by heart. There was something unreadable in her expression, part caution, part memory. She shifted her gaze to Mrs. Tang instead. "I'm worried about leaving you here alone," she said, her tone careful, choosing the safe concern over the real reason that gnawed at her heart. The older woman smiled, a mixture of kindness and quiet resolve. "I've lived alone most of my life. I know how to take care of myself. Don't think of me. Think of your future and the babies." Alex's hands rested on the edge of the table, his fingers curling slightly. He wanted to tell her how much her absence had changed the rhythm of his days, how the farm felt less alive without her laughter softening its edges. But he stayed silent. Sometimes pressing too hard could close a door rather than open it. The baby stirred, a small whimper breaking the quiet. Tuna adjusted the blanket, murmuring something soothing under her breath. The sound was so gentle, it almost made Alex forget the distance between them. He watched the way she bent over her child, the tenderness in her hands, and thought, not for the first time, that the farm wasn't just missing a worker. It was missing her. Mrs. Tang excused herself to check on something outside, leaving the two of them in the soft quiet of the room. The sunlight had shifted, casting longer shadows across the floor. Alex cleared his throat. "You don't have to decide now," he said, though every part of him was braced for an answer. "I just hope you know you'd be welcome. Always." Tuna looked at him then, fully, without turning away. In her eyes was the echo of the hurt she still carried, a reminder of the words she'd overheard that day, the conversation that had fractured everything. She didn't speak of it. Some wounds are easier left unmentioned, especially when they have no clean resolution. And so, the moment passed quietly. The room was filled only with the soft breathing of the baby, the distant rustle of leaves outside, and the unspoken knowledge that a choice waited ahead. Somewhere between the weight of Alex's hope and the pull of her own guarded heart, Tuna knew she would have to step forward. But not yet. Not today. The clock was still ticking, and she wasn't ready to hear it strike. Morning broke with a pale mist curling over the hills, the kind that blurred the edges of the world and made every sound seem softer. In Mrs. Tang's yard, dew clung to the bamboo leaves, trembling under the weight of the wind. Inside, Tuna sat by the small wooden table, her hands wrapped around a cup of warm tea. She had been awake long before dawn, her thoughts looping endlessly between staying and leaving. Alex's visit the day before lingered like a faint warmth she couldn't quite step away from. She remembered the steadiness in his eyes, the restraint in his voice. He hadn't pressed her, but that only made his presence harder to ignore. In the quiet moments, she caught herself recalling the way the bamboo swayed at the farm, the rhythm of work they once shared. And yet, over it all, was the memory of that conversation she had overheard, her name absent, replaced by the description of someone else, more fitting. Mrs. Tang entered from the kitchen, drying her hands. "You've been thinking about it all night," she said without question. Tuna managed a small smile. "I suppose I have." "For the baby's sake," the older woman continued gently. "It might be time to go back. You can't let pride keep you from a place where you're cared for." Tuna's gaze fell to her child, asleep in the cradle. There was no denying that the farm offered more stability, more safety, and Alex, whatever his mother thought, had never treated her with anything but respect. Slowly, she nodded. "I'll go back," she said, though the words felt like they were balanced on a thin wire, neither fully certain nor entirely reluctant. When Alex returned later that day, she told him her decision. His relief was quiet but visible, the tension easing from his shoulders. He offered to help her pack, moving about the small house with careful efficiency. As she folded the last of the baby's clothes, Tuna paused at the doorway to look at Mrs. Tang. "Thank you for everything," she said, her voice catching just slightly. The older woman waved a hand as if to push away the weight of gratitude. "Live well, that's all I ask." Still, as Tuna stepped outside, the air sharp with the scent of pine, the questions followed her. Was she returning to a place where she belonged, or simply to a man who had offered her shelter? And if his path had already been set by someone else, what space was truly hers in it? The afternoon sky was the color of faded silk, stretched thin over the hills. Alex loaded the last of the bags into the truck while Tuna adjusted the baby's blanket, her fingers lingering at the edge as if memorizing the feel of its soft weave. Mrs. Tang stood nearby, arms folded loosely, her gaze steady but warm. "You take care of yourself," the older woman said, "and bring the baby to visit when you can." Tuna nodded, the words caught somewhere in her throat. "I will, and if Adam comes by, please thank him for me." "I'll tell him," Mrs. Tang replied. "Now go, before the road gets dark." The truck's engine rumbled to life, breaking the quiet. As they pulled away, Tuna turned to watch the small house shrink into the distance, its outline framed by the gentle sway of bamboo. The air was cool against her face, carrying the scent of damp earth and the memory of evenings spent under the same sky. Alex drove without hurry, his hands steady on the wheel. The road wound past fields washed in amber light, through patches of shadow where the trees leaned close. Neither spoke for a while. The silence between them felt less like distance and more like a bridge waiting to be crossed. In the fading light, the farm came into view, its familiar rooftops breaking through the horizon. Tuna felt something shift inside her, a mixture of recognition and uncertainty. The baby stirred in her arms and she held him closer, the rhythm of his breathing anchoring her. She wondered, not for the first time, if returning meant she was stepping into a home or simply circling back to a place she had never fully claimed. The question lingered, unanswered, as the truck rolled into the yard and the evening settled in around them like a quiet promise, or perhaps a quiet warning. And that's how Tuna's road led her back to the farm. Yet, not all questions found their answers. Was it truly home, or just a shelter offered by Alex's kindness? Only time will tell if the distance between their hearts will close or grow again. If this story touched you, don't forget to subscribe and help us reach 10,000 followers. Your support is the reason we can keep bringing you more stories filled with emotion, drama, and the quiet moments that linger long after they're over. Because sometimes love isn't about grand gestures. It's about the choices we make in the silence.